William Roberts, a.k.a. Rose. I'm about to go in on him, man. There's a lot of stuff I'm about to be talking about right now. For the next 20, 30 minutes, it's just going to be Rick Ross, me going in on Rick Ross. So the first thing is 1090 Jake dropped some documents, and I think 50 Cent actually dropped these documents initially. And these documents show that Rick Ross has had perfect attendance as a correctional officer. Since he had a certificate of appreciation presented to Officer William Roberts in recognition of your service as a police attendance employee, Department of Corrections. So apparently he had a perfect attendance and was a correctional officer for 2 years. I think these documents were released a while ago from 50. So I think 1090J just got them from 50. But, you know, he resigned in June 16th, 1997. He released a letter saying, "Dear South Florida Reception Center, with this letter I offer my resignation from my position as a correctional officer at South Florida Reception Center, effective June 16th, 1997. My decision has been made after months of deliberation, and now I feel this is the right direction for me. Thank you for your interest in my career and for the experience I've gained through my employment in South Florida Reception Center. William Leonard Roberts, Jr." Now, why is this a big deal? Why is this blah, blah, blah? Like, why do we care about this? Well, Rick Ross has consistently lied about his past as a correctional officer. Consistently. Now, what are people going to throw at me, right? People are going to throw at me immediately. I can already read the comments and tell. Well, Quake, he was a correctional officer because, you know, there are a lot of dirty correctional officers. He was probably helping a lot of drug dealers smuggle drugs, or he's helping drug dealers get drugs in the prison, and that's why he's a correctional officer, right? That's okay. Throw that out there. He's a drug dealer. He was just helping people. That's why he's a correctional officer. Let's just throw that out there, right? Here's why I don't believe that bullshit. When it first came out, the photo came out of Rick Ross as a correctional officer. And there's interviews to prove of this. There's interviews with timelines, which when I redo my 50 versus Rick Ross thing, I'm going to put out timelines of this. Rick Ross completely denied that he was a correction officer. Completely denied it. Said the photos were photoshopped. That was not him. Mind you, this lasted for about a year and a half, until 50 came out with documents saying this guy was actually a correctional officer. Hard-bred documents from South Florida. What happened after that? What did Rick Ross do? Instead of saying, hey, the photos are photoshopped, he finally got pressured to admitting, I was a correction officer. Yes, that's true. Now, what did he do after that, though? Finally admitted to it. So, one, you lie for a year and a half, 2 years, say, I wasn't me. Then you change your answer to, it was me, but... And this is the but. Oh, I was in there for only a couple of months. I was helping a bunch of street dudes. I was in there to help the streets, to help my guys who were trying to move weight. Now, again, as years go on, that's been rebutted and has been proven as false. He said on the podcast, I forget, it's the Full Send podcast. That's what he said.
Maybe when I was 20.
20 years old.
Yeah.
What kind of people were in there?
You know, I didn't really get to make it to the prison because you got to go through training and all that, and I didn't last long.
Right.
I may have lasted 4 months.
Right.
Before they said,
yeah,
I was a little tardy. Anything you got to really do, and you fucking running and jogging and all of that shit, man. I missed a few days.
Look at that. So documents come out now, clearly showing. And mind you, this has probably been documents a while ago. I don't know if 50 released the documents. I know it released a lot, but clearly showing he's been in perfect attendance for 2 years as an officer, correctional officer. 2 years perfect attendance. So why would he deny and be like, 4 months and I didn't even get in there. I was tardy. And then he flips this narrative of, I was smuggling drugs. I was doing it just for the streets. I was helping my homies in the streets out. Come on, guys. At what point do we got to be like, okay, this guy's lying? Like, how many times does this guy have to adjust his story for us to be like, okay, this guy's lying? Think about it. If I adjusted my story, if anybody that you knew adjusted their story 3 times over, would you believe them? I wouldn't.
What's up, fam? Just another episode of Mediazewtv. Still a lot of drama going on. Still a lot of drama going on with this RickRoss, this 50 Cent Big Meech mess. You know, now everybody's talking about what happened to RickRoss's arm. Lord have mercy. That's just another distraction for what RickRoss really did, you know. While Big Meech was giving his response, worrying about somebody tricking him off the streets, all RickRoss was doing was tricking Meech out his bag. He basically used Big Meech to promote his car show coming up in June. I hate Big Meech is in this situation, but as a hustler that's been sitting in prison for 19 years and one that follows the hip hop game, Big Meech is smart enough, or he should have known that RickRoss is probably the biggest fraud in hip hop history. Before that, Vanilla Ice had that title, but not to the extent of RickRoss. When Vanilla Ice came out in the early 90s, you know, that was a time when the fans wanted the artist to be authentic. You know, Vanilla Ice portrayed to the public that he was a poor white boy and from the streets. But he really came from a rich family, you know. When they found that out, his career was pretty much over. But I can't front because everybody was bumping that record, Ice Ice Baby, that Vanilla Ice made, you know. But RickRoss is the biggest fraud in hip hop history, bar none. The beef between him and 50 Cent came from when RickRoss said 50 Cent didn't speak to him and looked at him wrong at the BET Awards. He started dissing 50 Cent, then 50 Cent exposed him as having been a correctional officer, along with RickRoss's baby mama, Tia Kemp, saying that it was his friend that was the drug dealer. He barely could keep a job. And it was crazy how RickRoss started denying it and saying the photo of him in the prison uniform was photoshopped. Then everybody started digging to the point he couldn't lie about it. I remember him on the video saying, when he finally admitted it, yeah, it's me, but that's how I met my connect. So he still just couldn't completely cop to it, even when he was dead to the rights in black and white, you know. It just, he gotta be the biggest fraud in hip hop history. I can remember when Def Jam had, I think, their 25th anniversary concert, and they started with performances from their early stars all the way to the present. And RickRoss was the last performer, and this was right after he had been exposed by 50 Cent. He did the song Every Day I'm Hustling. And the then Def Jam president, Kevin Liles, was in the audience laughing at him. So it's hard to believe that a hustler like Big Meech would serve time, then link up with a former prison guard and a fraud like RickRoss. You know, it seems like he would be smarter than that, because all the money, you know, all money ain't good money. Big Meech ain't even been out of jail for 6 months, and RickRoss pretty much ruined the BMF brand. And on top of that, the only reason RickRoss really still has a career is because when he got exposed, it was Diddy and Jay-Z that propped him up. And that's why you see 50 Cent go at Diddy and Jay-Z all the time, because they was also a part of blocking him, along with Irv Gotti, from having a record deal before he signed with Eminem and Dr. Dre. But it's just an unfortunate situation, because not only did RickRoss ruin Big Meech's brand, but it affects his children, Lil Meech and the sisters. So I'm not going to come down too hard on Big Meech, because nobody's perfect. I pray for Big Meech and his family, and I hope he just takes the time to get his mind right. I think if Big Meech comes out and begins talking to the youth about the dangers of his lifestyle, instead of trying to party and shine, he'll be okay. So remember, like, share, and subscribe. Put God first. Keep your head on a swivel and stay on your pivot.